Hi everybody, thanks for joining us today. We're going to start with broadcast as normal with Paul Gilmore from Sky Sports News, and then we'll go to the dailies and then a section for the Sundays afterwards.
Sorry, Joe, can I just get permission to record if that's okay?
You may, yeah.
Thanks.
So we're going to start now. Paul from Sky Sports News.
Thanks, Joanne. Hi, Roy.
Hi, Paul.
Roy, have you any team news ahead of this game? In particular, do you think Tompkins or MacArthur could be fit to play again this season?
MacArthur, I'm more doubtful about than James Tompkins. I think James Tompkins is getting very, very close to being able to play and certainly to be included in the squad. Patrick Van Arnholt has a family issue that he has to take care of, so I don't think we'll be seeing him this weekend. And then apart from that, it's just the ones alongside MacArthur. It's Connor Wickham and Mamadou Sakho that are still unavailable for us. Nathaniel Klein was sick today, but there's been a bit of 24-hour illness going around, so it's too early to rule him out, but I'll have to wait and see tomorrow if he's recovered.
Palace, under your leadership, have always been remarkably consistent. You're safe this season. It's been the case over the last 4 years. How do you keep them motivated at this point of the season? That there's still a bit of football to be played. I'm thinking ahead even to the last game of the season when you could go back to your former club and deny Liverpool Champions League football. So there's all those permutations still at play. How do you keep them going?
Well, in actual fact, it's the players themselves who've got to keep themselves going. There's no doubt. We've been a bit unfortunate in the sense of in the last lockdown period, we seem to get a very tough schedule right at the end. And the same's happened to us again. So it's fortunate in a way that we got the points we really needed before these last 4 or 5 games, or 6 or 7 games even, because we're playing the best teams in the country during that period. But I think the players themselves, they have enough pride in their performance, enough pride as professionals, and respecting in actual fact the job that's everyone wants them to do when they go on the field, and that's what keeps us going. I've not noticed any particular slacking off in the training sessions, and certainly I still want players, or have players, who want to play the game. There's no one actually holding his hand up saying, well, the season's virtually over for us, so please let me have a rest. It's the ones I leave out at the weekend, they're still as angry with me as they would have been early on in the season. So I think that's the main point. But there is a good excuse, I think, for these players to feel fairly proud of what they've done. It's not easy to stay in this league, especially year after year. And we haven't had the best of situations with injuries. Since January, we've been missing people like Tompkins and Sakho, and James MacArthur virtually throughout. Zaha had a long period on the sideline, as did Jeffrey Schlupp. So it's not as if we've always had our full first team complement available, but people have kept going, and it is, in my opinion anyway, an achievement to make certain that you stay away from that relegation zone and the relegation threatened zone, because there's no doubt that games become very tough when you're frightened all the time that any false step you take could plummet you into the relegation zone and have everyone crying out that you're going to be relegated at the end of the season. It's not a nice thing to have happen to you.
On the opposition team this weekend, you faced Jack Grealish. Just wondering your thoughts on him. Should England fans be excited about the potential of him at the Euros this summer? Has he got the ability to light up the tournament?
Well, I detect a slight Irish accent there, Paul, so I suppose you're one of them before. You're not that happy that he was persuaded to commit his future to England, because at one stage Martin O'Neill was really working hard to get him to forget England youth team football and even under 21 football and go directly to the Irish national team. But I definitely think that's England's game. I think that was a fortunate moment in time when Jack decided he would commit himself to England, for whom he'd been playing, let's be fair, since under 18 level. And since that time, and I'm talking now at least 7 years ago when that happened, he's matured and improved as a player enormously. And there's no doubt that, Jack Grealish, when he's 100% fit, is going to be a hard guy to leave out of any squad, whether it's England or any other team in the world for that matter. I'm disappointed for him that he's had to deal with this injury situation, which of course is a major setback because it's going to put Gareth Southgate under that sort of pressure that I've experienced myself on a couple of occasions before tournaments. There's a player you really want, but he's not been playing on a regular basis for a long period of time. And do you take a chance on his fitness being able to be recovered during your training sessions, or do you accept I've got to leave him out to go for someone who's been playing every week? It's a tough decision. But is Jack good enough, and would Jack be a player in his best form that can make a difference to an England team? I think everyone would agree that he could.
Yeah, how big a factor is that when it comes to match fitness and match sharpness, even if you've got a player with that type of ability, and when he's been fully fit this season, making that type of impact that he has, does match sharpness play a significant role in decision making as an international manager?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think I have to throw back, what is match sharpness? That is the problem. We use that term, we bandy it about, and he's actually fit, but he's lacking match fitness, he's lacking match sharpness. But really, there's no real way of knowing what match fitness and match sharpness is. Often we disguise it. Someone who's got back in the team and hasn't played quite as well as he was doing before he got injured, we put it down to match fitness. I think it's an almost impossible one to make a scientific judgment on. I think it's going to be a question of what Gareth wants to do with his squad. What positions he sees players playing in, and to what extent he's prepared to wait, if you like, for a player that he perhaps thinks is very, very important, and to take him with him. Now, I've done that in the past in tournaments, because you do get enough players. In fact, this year you get 3 more. So even when there was 23, I did that in both tournaments. But I can't say, I guess, that it was a roaring success. The gamble, if you like, that we took, that the player would, re-find his fitness and form after missing so much of the last games in the season. So I wouldn't like to be the one who gives any advice as to what the right thing to do there is. I think it's a much an individual call.
And going back to Palace, I mentioned earlier about the consistency you've achieved over the 4 years at the club, and it's always, especially with clubs with smaller budgets or whatever, it's always a bit of a risk, I suppose, when they come to change manager. I've noticed reports this week about next weekend, and could that be a potential farewell for you in front of the returning Crystal Palace fans? What have you made of those reports? Have you anything to say on that?
No, nothing at all. I haven't read the reports, to be perfectly honest. I've said all along that there'll be a time for an announcement as to what my future is going to be, and when I'm ready, I'll make that announcement. But I haven't seen the reports or the speculation, so I guess that's been going on for some while now. Since I've been answering this sort of question for the last 2.5 months, I presume there's been stuff written into the bargain as well. It's just I don't read it.
And regardless of what happens next season, do you want to continue on into football next season as well?
Well, once again, when the time comes for me to speak openly about this subject, I will speak openly about the subject. But today isn't the moment, because today is a press conference to preview our match against Aston Villa, which I think is an important match for us. We won against Sheffield United. We'd lost 3 before that. We lost again against Southampton. So we're not on a great run of form in terms of taking points. And we've got another opportunity now on Sunday to take points, and I want the full focus to be on that. And when the time comes to speak openly about what my future will look like, I will do so.
Roy, thanks very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much, Paul. We'll go to Mark Scott of Premier League Productions.
Hello, Roy. Nice to see you again.
You too.
So just there's not been any sort of suggestion that the players have slacked off at all, despite safety being in the bag. But is 50 points still a carrot for them as well if you win your last 3? Because that would be your best ever points total in the Premier League for Palace.
Yes, it's a carrot, but I fear that teams of the quality of Aston Villa, Arsenal, and Liverpool might have something to say on that subject. So I don't know that I should set that in front of them as a realistic goal. It's something we'll go for, something we'll try for, just like we try to win every game. But realistically, it's not going to be easy for us to get 9 points and 3 successive victories against that level of opponent. In fact, one could go further. It's not easy to get 9 points and 3 successive wins against any groups of opponent in this league, let alone the ones that are right at the top there. So I don't expect to see any slacking on. The players still want to play in the games. When I pick a team, if there's players there who left out, they are still a little bit disappointed or angry with me. Perhaps I don't know, because they want to play, and that's important. So I don't fear that. What I fear in terms of results is the quality of our opponents. That's what I fear. That I know we're playing against teams with a lot of good players who will be equally as motivated as ourselves and capable, of course, themselves of winning the game. So that's my only concern, if you call it a concern. It's not that we won't go out and do what we're capable of doing.
I just spoke to Christian, and obviously he scored again in the week against Southampton. I know that you didn't like to get bogged down on his scoring statistics because you felt he brought a lot more to the team than just goals. But given his return this season, how much credit does he deserve for his mental strength? Because as a striker, goals is your business, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a very good point. He does deserve a lot of credit for what he's done there. And these are things that only he can help himself with. What we can help him with is by trying to retain our faith and trying to give him the support and backing that we can give. And I'm sure that when he looks back on it, he would hold his hand up and say that we did do that. We didn't jump at the opportunity to take him out of the team when he was going through a barren run of goal scoring form. So we've stuck with him in that respect, but he's also stuck with it, and he's the one really who's been able to turn the corner and turn the tide, and he deserves an enormous amount of credit for it. And I'm rather hoping that the last 3 games of the season he'll be playing as well as he's been playing in the recent games, because he's got a Euros coming up. And, who knows what's going to happen in those Euros. Lukaku has been the main man for Roberto Martinez during this period of time, but who knows what's going to happen. And I would like to think that if Christian Benteke was given a chance, perhaps in place of Lukaku for one reason or another, he'd be ready to take it.
Looking at Aston Villa, they've slightly tailed off in the last sort of couple of months, but overall still a very impressive season for them, given their struggles last season. Yeah,
they've been very good, both they and West Ham, who last season were struggling near the bottom. This time they're in the top half of the table, and they must be very, very satisfied with that. I think Jack Grealish has played an enormous part in their success, and you talk about them tailing off, it might be quite as similar as when you lose a player of his calibre and someone who's such a talisman for the team. Often there is some sort of drop-off. We've experienced that ourselves on many occasions in the past. You don't take players of that quality out of teams and then expect them just to carry on blithely, siding their way through the league. But they've got a lot of very good players, and a lot of players who've improved enormously this year. So they're going to be a tough nut to crack, and I can only congratulate them on the season they've had.
And they're very tough to score against as well. 15 clean sheets in the Premier League this season. Only Chelsea and Manchester City have actually kept more, which is testament to the job they've done defensively.
Yes, but I'm certain that Dean, if you spoke to him, will say that they defend from the front. They defend right the way through the team. So they defend very well as a team. And it's not just a question of the goalkeeper having had a good season or the 2 centre-backs, perhaps, grabbing headlines from time to time. I'm pretty certain that Dean will point out we are a good team going forward and defending, and that's why we're able to keep teams out. So, yeah, it won't be easy for us to score our goals against them on Sunday, but I'm pleased we're going to have the opportunity to try.
Thanks for your time, Roy. All the best at the weekend.
Pleasure, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Alex Howell of BBC Sport.
Hi, Roy.
Hi, Alex.
Just another question on Christian. With his form and goals and his contract running out, does it make the club maybe want to tie him up quicker as you have an asset who could approach 10 Premier League goals?
Well, I think that the matter is in hand. Obviously, if you're a player whose contract is running out and you're in good form, suddenly the chips fall into your favour more than the other way around. That, you know, if you're not playing well and your contract's running out, perhaps it's the club that's holding the cards. But at the moment, he's in a good position in that respect. But I'm pretty sure that the club know what he can do. They know his qualities. They've seen enough of him. I've seen him for 4 years. They've seen him for 4.5, I think. So in actual fact, his longevity at the club is well documented. And I also know that Steve Parish and Doug Freedman, they are in contact with the agents of all of these players, really, whose contracts are running out. But I can't give you any direct update as to where it stands and whether Christian Benteke is anxious to leave or anxious to stay.
And just a question on England as well. UEFA have announced it's going to be a 26-man squad, and Gareth Southgate was initially against that because he said there's a skill to picking a 23. Do you agree with that? And do you think the 26-man squad will have some positives?
Well, it's like the five subs argument. You know, there are lots of pros and cons, and most arguments have got some validity. And I do sympathise with Gareth. It's very, very difficult to pick 23 players and to leave out some that you've probably been working with during a period of time and to tell them there's no place in that squad. But adding to the squad numbers doesn't necessarily improve matters, because it just means quite often that the 3 extra players that you've taken and you wouldn't have taken had it been 23 will only be hanging around and not getting much game time or not featuring as much as they would like in the team. The one thing that probably will be put forward as an argument this time around, and it would be perhaps quite relevant for Gareth, you know, these injuries which are occurring, you know, quite late on, and not giving much time for recovery before he has to name a squad and start working with the squad. The extra players could possibly give him the chance to take those players and, you know, see what happens and how their recovery pans out without having to make a definite decision about them, you know, before it's 100% necessary. But as I say, there's lots of pros and cons. It's not easy to keep 23 players happy for that period of time of a tournament, especially if your team is fairly settled and, you know, you're not making a lot of changes from game to game. That's an awful lot of players who are going to spend a lot of time away from home, a lot of time in a bubble, a lot of time really at the end of a long season, working hard to represent their country. As a manager, it's a very tough job to keep those guys on board.
Thank you, Roy.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Alex. George Sessions of PA.
Hi, Roy. I think you was asked about Christian and if anything's changed on Tuesday. I wondered, you know, even maybe subconsciously, do you feel like the extra competition that Jean-Philippe Mateta's sort of provided since January has maybe sort of contributed towards his forms? I think it's sort of 4 goals, isn't it, for Christian since January?
I'm not sure. I mean, I've got to say that I believe that the motivation and the desire to produce the performances that he's been giving, that's come from within. I don't think he looks around and suddenly starts thinking, oh my God, you know, perhaps I'm not going to play. He's had competition before that. You know, Wilf Zaha's played up there. Jordan Ayew in particular has played up there. We've had Michy Batshuayi with us all the time. Michy Batshuayi is a real quality centre forward. So I'm pretty certain it's been good for us in particular to have players of Batshuayi and Mateta's quality to, you know, keep him honest, if you like. But it hasn't been necessary to keep him honest. You know, it's been a motivation that's come fully from within to do well for the club, to make certain that he shows himself in a good light, and presumably also to make certain that when the Euros come around, he's in the best possible form.
And obviously your own future's sort of always talked about, I might be wrong, but you kind of struck me as the person that wouldn't really want a fanfare when it does come the time for you to sort of to bail out of the game. I can imagine you feeling a little bit uneasy with all the sort of praise that will obviously come your way when you do eventually retire.
I haven't talked about retirement as yet, and there'll come a time, I'm certain, in my life when I'll talk about retirement, but I'm not talking about it at the moment.
Okay, thanks very much, George.